All right, folks, it's the top of the hour, so we shall get started. So good morning, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from the world. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Future of Desktop webinar. I'm super excited to be able to talk about this because I think we sometimes don't do desktop apps justice. So I'm glad to be able to spend a whole hour talking about all the cool things with desktop and .NET and .NET 5. So let us begin. So my name is Sam Basu. I am a developer advocate here at Progress Software. You are only going to see me today, but there's a small army of folks, engineers and PMs on our side who are on the call. So please ask away any questions. And folks on the call here, if you can mute yourself on our side, I hear a few clicking things, so thank you. So that right there is my social handle for Twitter and Skype and GitHub. So make sure you can reach out to me anytime. I would love to have conversations with you. This will not be a one-way kind of webinar where we do all the talking. We actually want this to be interactive. So we have a couple of questions. This is, I think, a very interesting time for desktop developers. So we want to know what you are thinking. So as we go through, we're going to take like 30-second pause in between a couple of times and ask you a few generic questions as to where you see things going and how you want to proceed. So let's go have fun and ask away questions. This is your time. So I do want to start by acknowledging that this is a difficult year for many of us. So hopefully you are staying safe, you taking care of yourself and your families. I think kindness and empathy are the emotions of 2020. So please be as productive as you can and then take care of yourself, okay? So let's talk about what we have in store here for the next hour. It's all things desktop. It's all things .NET, the latest and greatest modern desktop apps as you may have it. So this is your hour. We appreciate your time in spending with us. So make it count. Ask away questions. There's a Q&A panel. If you are on Twitter, there's a hashtag here, Hey Telerik. So if you ask away questions, that leaves a breadcrumb so we can have a conversation. And whatever happens throughout the next hour, like if you have to run for a meeting or if your connection drops, don't worry, we are recording this in high def and we will push it out to YouTube as soon as we can. Okay, so that's just all the housekeeping I have. Let's talk about desktop, because I think we always talk about web and we always talk about mobile. I don't think we talk about desktop enough. And I think everybody is realizing in the last couple of years in particular how important desktop apps are for enterprise workflows. Like this is what runs your business. So we should talk about this more. And we have a variety of choices now as to how we go about writing desktop applications. So before we start, let's pause for a second. And we have Olia Gavrysh from Microsoft, so that should be very exciting. But let's pause for a second and talk about .NET, because everything that we talk about is happening on top of .NET, right? So you may have seen some of these slides from Microsoft before. This is .NET as it stands today. This purple box is what we know as the .NET framework for the last 17 years. It's not going away anywhere. All of your desktop and mobile and web workflows can work just fine on .NET framework, but obviously .NET Core is much more new and it's getting all of the innovation. Mono is still around and will be for Xamarin. So our tools of our trade, again, have come a long way. For Windows, we mostly use Visual Studio on Windows, and that's what you're going to see me use. But if you're doing other things, obviously, you can do Mac or Visual Studio Code. So lots of options, and this is .NET as it stands today. And this is .NET as it stands tomorrow. And the tomorrow is literally 10 days out, right? So if you are a Microsoft developer, you likely have heard about .NET Conf. That's coming up November 10th, I think. And that's going to be like a 3-day event, all digital, and you're going to see them come out with .NET 5, which is a big effort. It's a big unification effort. There are maybe a little bit of kind of fragmentation in the different .NET. So they're trying to put it all together. So .NET 5 essentially is taking the best of .NET Core and Mono and putting it all together. .NET Framework kind of writes the way it is, but then all modern apps can be built on .NET 5 moving forward. So it's the one .NET for all things. And then this is a welcome change, right? Let's talk about desktop, right? Because there are lots of choices, and sometimes you get these acronyms thrown at you, and you don't always realize what those mean and what some of the history is. I'm old. I've done a lot of desktop over my years of being a developer, and I've seen a lot of things, as has much of our engineering team. So these are the four main ways in which you can build for Windows desktop today. So you have Windows Forms, WinForms, you have WPF, which is Windows Presentation Foundation, UWP, and Windows UI or WinUI. So things started with WinForms, right? This was back in the days where we learned to do drag and drop, and we could have a nice form, which was very productive, and we could have code behind. Then we learned that we could do Zamo. We could bring in Xaml as our visual tree and our UI stack, and that's where WPF came in. And these are very, very rich ecosystems now with fantastic tooling, very rich kind of community support and ecosystem support, and everything is open source now, by the way. Since .NET Core 3.1, WinForms and WPF are open source. Universal Windows Platform was meant to be the one universal thing that's all across Windows. So your Windows apps now run on HoloLens, on Surface Hub, and other things. And it's still going strong, but I think what they're realizing is they needed to separate the UI stack from Windows itself, because they want to push out those updates quicker than just Windows updates. So that's where you're seeing WinUI. It's still in preview, and you're going to see where we come in as well. But that's how things are evolving. So you have quite a bit of choice. And all of these things, like WPF and WinForms, will continue running on .NET Framework, but they also run on .NET Core, which is what we're going to talk about today, and what some migration paths might look like. When should you migrate? And so all of those things. And UWP and WinUI, they run on the latest .NET anyways. So you have a choice, and you get to pick whichever one that suits the best based on the type of app you're building. And no matter how you're building your Windows desktop apps, we want to help you out, because again, it's all about developer productivity. We all have deadlines, and we all have to ship our apps. So let's not reinvent the wheel when it comes to the UI part of your app. You should be able to grab UI and be able to ship your apps faster, drag and drop, and have all the performance, all the polish that you need. So again, we are in the business of making developers successful with UI. And you're going to see me talk about all things Telerik today, which is for just the desktop part of it. But it's not just desktop. We do Blazor, we do web, we do Xamarin for mobile. So we do .NET UI across all of .NET, different types of applications. But we're going to talk about the desktop stuff today. So this is exciting. And no matter what you do, we are here to help, right? So who best to talk about all things Windows desktop than the project manager, the program manager herself for all of the Windows tooling, and that's Olia Gavrysh. We love what she does, and she's over at Microsoft, and she is here to talk about all the desktop updates and the things that the tooling that her and her team has done recently to make developers more productive. Now, as fate would have it, she is actually off today. She is traveling to Egypt. I'm just a little bit jealous for a vacation. I think she's at a family gathering. So she has a flight to catch this morning, but I was able to get with her yesterday. So let's switch and see what Olia has to say. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Future of Desktop webinar. With me, I have the wonderful Olia Gavrysh from Microsoft. How are you, Olia?
Very good, thank you, Sam. Hi,
Awesome.
everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Now, like, if you are a .NET desktop developer, like, it's hard to not know Olia, but as we know, like in the last couple of years, like we have actually seen a resurgence of desktop development. We all realize how important desktop is for running businesses and enterprise workflows. So for the new folks, Olia, please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Of course. So my name is Olia Gavrysh, and I'm working as a program manager at Microsoft on a .NET team. I'm focusing on .NET Desktop. So I'm working with everything related to WinForms, WPF, the future of .NET platform. You know that there is a new platform coming up in 7 days. It's .NET 5.
You may have heard of it.
Yeah. Yes. So that's all my focus areas.
Yeah, so all of the things we're talking about today with WinForms and WPF, this is the person that makes it all work. This is the tooling, and you have a fabulous team working on this, right?
Yes. Behind it is amazing engineers, other PMs, and we have absolutely great people and absolutely great open source contributors that help us a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit as to like how you see modern desktop development today. Like we began like way back in the days. Like I come from a heavy desktop background. Like, but how do you see things today?
Right. So back in the days, there was WinForms. It was a very long time ago, right? Then we created WPF, then UWP. Now we have a new project, WinUI, coming up. And in general, like if you think about software development right now, I would say it's not just web or just desktop. Usually you create a product and it has different solutions, right? You want it to be accessible on mobile, you want to have a desktop version of it, you want to have a backend running. So I would say right now .NET offers a great opportunity to share and reuse code because it enables every single platform. You can create desktop applications, web, mobile, AI solutions, IoT, and cloud attached solutions, and so on. And that's where I see the future of software development and even present already happening.
Yeah, that is a great point because like seldom does things happen in a silo. When we are building desktop, we are building other apps as well. So as .NET developers, we like to see the tooling and we like to see the ability to cross-platform and share our code. Yeah. So like WinForms and WPF, and thank you for telling us that it's been for a while because like I'm old, but this is so much fun. We are building stuff on such mature platforms.
Not old, experienced, right,
Experience,
Tim?
exactly. Well said. So tell us a little bit as to how things have evolved in the last couple of years, especially like with .NET Core 3. And I know like you and your team are super dedicated in providing us the best possible tools. So what are some big things you have done?
Yeah, absolutely. So the greatest thing, and you probably have heard about it already, that we enabled WinForms and WPF on .NET Core, and now they're coming in .NET 5 as well. Yes,
Super exciting.
we are very happy about it. We open sourced that code, so now you can see the source code on our public repos, and we brought them to .NET Core, which means that now desktop applications can benefit from all the features that are available in .NET Core and .NET 5. And there are many. First thing first, the .NET 5 is the platform that will be the platform of .NET going forward. So all new things we will add to .NET 5. And that would be performance improvements, new language, new features, improvements in tooling, and so on. So if you want your applications to be able to benefit from all of that, .NET 5 is definitely the way to go. And I know before you had many different things you could target, right? You could target .NET Framework, you could target .NET Core, you could target .NET Standard. So now we're uniting it all in one platform, .NET. And we choose the version 5 because that's the highest version among all existed, right? The latest version of .NET Framework was 4.8, Core 3.1. So we picked 5 to emphasize that that is the highest version. That's the new thing that is coming.
Yeah, and I love that because like desktop, like in particular WinForms and WPF are so productive for developers to get something going, and it doesn't need to be old school. It can absolutely be modern, and it runs on the latest and greatest .NET frameworks with all the tooling that we love. So thank you for doing all the things that you and your team does. Would you like to show us some of the things that you're going to do?
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
so let's bring up your desktop here.
Sure. So
All right,
as you mentioned, we, besides just bringing platforms to .NET Core and .NET 5, we also keep innovating in those areas. And first, I wanted to show some Zamo tooling improvements. So I have a WPF application, and if I run it, let's start small. Let me bring the app here. You probably have seen this in-app toolbar, right? And here you have a quick access to live visual tree. You can select elements, etc. Some people liked it, but some people were not happy because it gets in the way, right? It blocks part of your application. So what we did recently, we made it shorter. It was like hovering over panels. Now it's smaller. Another thing, you can also move it. You can
Oh,
move it
nice.
anywhere you want.
Nice.
Even more, you can make it smaller, and even more smaller, you can make it hide in this little thing and bring it up. But even if you don't like that, you can go to Live Visual Tree and here disable it completely. So
Oh, I
once
see.
I did that, no more in-app toolbar. If you don't like
Nice.
it, you can just disable it. It will stay disabled until you go back and enable it. So if I rerun my application, in-app toolbar won't be there unless I opt in for that. So that is a small feature, but we've heard the feedback that for some people, in some cases, it gets in the way. They don't want to have it. They want ability to disable, enable it.
Right. And now it's a choice. Yeah, that's great.
Exactly. Second feature, which is also small, but I personally like it so much, we added a color preview in Designer, right? So now you can see the little square with the color. And for me, I'm not very good with those codes.
Nice.
For me, that was super, super useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next feature I want to show, and this one is a much bigger one, is called design time data. So we heard the feedback that for some users, WPF is all about data binding, right? And sometimes data binding is not in the place yet. You either haven't wrote that code yet, or it's not working. You're working on the UI, and you need to account for controls having the data where you might not have the data coming into your application yet.
Right. And then
But
that's the reality of like doing software dev,
yeah,
where
yeah.
like you're working with different teams and the data is just not there.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my case, for example, I have lots of grid view, list views, but I don't have data yet. What do? We enabled the feature that is called design time data, where you can attach d-colon to any property in your Xaml code, and the value of that property will be applied to designer in the design time, but not in the real application. And for example, here, let's try. I will do d-colon. Actually, let me find something more. Go at quick list, and I will do d-colon header. Equals hello Sam.
Oh, thank you for including me in your app.
Of course. So now you can see the caption of that tab is now hello Sam 111. But if I run it, I will still see the old value list. Right? And that prevents me, if I want to try and experiment with some values, if I want to use mock data, but I want to make sure those changes don't go into production, that is completely safe. This code doesn't get compiled.
Yeah.
And yeah, with the header or things like that, it's very simple. It's not even that impressive. I could just change it here and change it back there. But when we are talking about more advanced controls, that's where this feature becomes really handy. For example, for this list view, I can decolumn list view item source, and I can provide the mock data for my entries. So when my data binding is really broken, or not there yet, not developed, or sometimes even applications are so large that every time running the application and then stopping, going back to designer, adjusting the size of your controls, adjusting the font, then running it again, it's very time consuming. Right now, it takes you no time.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a developer, you want to see things in action before you have the data and be able to edit things live while your app is running.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can go even further. For example, for this data grid, we can mock a data grid item source. And I have my model employee. So that's my model. It has the public order status property, which is enumeration. Go here. Yeah, it's it has other properties. So here I can specify model
Like a
as
demo model. Yeah.
Yes, and it's even supported in the properties.
Nice.
So here I even see all those values from status, right? So
Sure.
I find this feature very handy.
It is super handy. And in a way, what I really like about like WPF and WinForms is it's like the whole family is coming together. I come from some Xamarin Forms background as well. I love hot reload in WPF, and I know we have had it for a while now, but this is so convenient.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of hot reload, we can, I would also love to demo that as well. So let's run the application. And in this case, let me make my Visual Studio half a screen so I can bring the application and you guys can see everything at the same time. Oh, right. Let me do this instead. All right, this is my app. This is my Visual Studio. So here I have the visual tree. If I click select item, select this item, I see this item is selected in my lib visual tree, right? Now I can click go to code and I immediately get the corresponding line highlighted in my Zamo code. So here I can change something and immediately see the change taking effect, right?
Yeah, this is great. This is so productive.
I also can do this. Let me go to grid and get rid of the grid. There you go. This disappears everything. Now I can put it back. And immediately everything is back. All data bindings, all resolutions, it's back there. So it's super convenient if you want to do minor changes and see the result right there. It's available. And the combination of those two features, design time data and hot reload, hopefully will make you productive. If you want to change something while the app is running, you can do that. If you want to change something in the designer, you don't want to run the app, something is not working in the runtime, but you want to work with the design time, it's also available. They are coming from both sides and meeting
exactly
each other.
and like you said, like the reality is when we are building enterprise apps, like these are complex apps and maybe you are in a wizard like to like stop and restart the app. That's a lot of work. And like this comes down to like the developer loop and how quickly can we make some code changes and see it in action. So I love that you're coming from both sides here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
So, next thing, and it's also a small thing that I wanted to show, we added a refresh button to the designer. So if something goes wrong, either you scrolled somewhere, like zoomed in, you went somewhere, you want to go back to the previous state, or if something didn't work and you need to close and reopen designer, now you don't need to, you just do refresh designer. And that is equivalent of you closing open designer, which saves
Interesting.
a lot.
Nice. And I mean, speaking of all of this, like the designer, like this itself is a lot of work, right? As we know, like with .NET Core, like getting the Windows Forms designer to work, and we have put in a lot of work with you to get like all of the Telerik UI bits to show up. So this was quite a bit of engineering effort from the team, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's not even all that I have. I have a few more features that I can show.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm extremely excited about Telerik support for WinForms and WPF. And as you can notice, I have all the controls of Telerik in my new designer.
Nice. Yeah, thank you for having us. Yeah, I mean, it's an ecosystem, right? Like we are all in this together. We want developers to be successful, and we want to work with Microsoft and get our tooling and all of the Microsoft tooling working in a polished way, so developers can get going quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. The
Awesome.
next feature I wanted to show, and that's some opportunity for Telerik and for all control vendors as well, because that feature is extensible for third-party control, is called, let me find this. Okay, yes, here it is. Next feature is called suggested actions. So when I select the control, I see this light bulb. And when I click on it, I see the actions that we suggest you. Those are the most used actions that developers usually take. And that all is from property window, but in property window, we have so many. And we heard the feedback that sometimes it's so crowded, it's very hard to navigate. And usually developers want to change just a few things and they want to have a very quick access to that. So now they can via that suggested action feature. So here you can change the content, background is enabled, disabled. It all is right there next to the control. And the cool thing about it that is extensible. So control vendors like Telerik, you can have your own tab and you can put there whichever properties you want to be available very fast and easy.
Yeah, this is very interesting because I mean there are similar things like we have done, like, but those are tied to like a specific control, like grid.
Right.
Often we can right click and have this context menu, but this is nice to be able to have it overall.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay, the next, so what we just talked about, that's all new improvements that we enabled in the new designer. And you know that with having applications on .NET Framework and then enabling them on .NET Core and .NET 5. When I talk about .NET Core, same applies to .NET 5 because .NET 5 is just the next version of .NET Core. You can think about it like that. But we ended up in the situation when we had two designers and two different code bases, one for .NET Framework and the new isolation surface designer with a completely new architecture, improved and much better, having much better performance. That one was for new .NET Core, .NET 5 apps. So what we decided to do for WPF, we decided to bring all the goodness from .NET 5 to .NET Framework applications as well.
Okay.
And we are merging two designers. So we're enabling the new designer for applications targeting .NET Framework. This feature is in the preview. And to test that, you can go to Tools Options. And here in Preview Features, and you need to be on Visual Studio Preview right now.
I see. Okay.
Eventually, it will be there. Here, there is a new WPF Xaml designer for .NET Framework. You need to opt in to this option and request restart. And as just a developer, you probably won't notice much, except for you might see performance improvements, right? But also all new features that so I meant the experience is the same, but you'll get all the new features, right? But it won't be that it's a completely different thing and now I don't know how to work with it because I'm used to the old way and now it's new way. No, it all will be all muscle memory. You can benefit from that, but you also will get new features, you will get performance improvements, and yeah.
I did not know this. This is great because like it's like the uniform developer experience. Like whether you're targeting framework or core or .NET 5, you have the same designer now.
Yeah, exactly. And eventually we will swap the old designer to the new one, but right now we are working with all control vendors to make sure that their controls are supported and working fine with this new designer. And we talked to your engineers a lot about it. We talked to other control vendors. And yeah, if you're a control vendor, if you're doing controls and you're having any issues, please reach out to me. It doesn't matter how big or small it can be. A one-person company.
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
need help with that, please reach out. I'm happy to.
Yeah, and it's not just the gigantic engineering teams like us. Like I mean, this is open source. Like so, folks maintain controls. So we want those controls to show up on and work seamlessly in the designers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. So those were let's recap. Those were new features in Zamo tooling. And in-app toolbar improvements, color previews, design time data. Documentation is available on this link. Refresh design button, suggested actions. That's the light next to the controls with the most used properties and actions. Hot reload that you talked about, right? And Xaml. Oh, another thing that I wanted to show you. Let me bring another project that I have to show you the next WPF tooling feature. This feature is called Zamo binding failures. And first, let me show you how the experience was before that feature. So I'm running another application, and in this application, everything is broken. So that application is like a total failure of binding. So this is the experience that we had before. My application is running. I know that some data bindings are not resolved, but I don't see it. Everything
Hmm.
works fine, and the only way to see it is going to output window and start reading all those logs, and then I will see that, oh, I have a error, data binding
Hmm.
expression path error, but it's not very noticeable, right? And
Right.
sometimes you don't even, you run your app, you think everything is fine, but something is not working. Oh, I had a binding failure that I didn't notice. So now let me enable this in-app toolbar. You can see that with binding failures, and it will have a number to how many binding failures you
Interesting.
got. And yeah, go ahead. Do you have a question?
No. I mean, this is. I'm just thinking through. Like when we are doing things like hot reload, we run into this a lot, right? We're changing XAML, and we don't
Right.
realize our bindings are failing.
Yeah, exactly. So now you can click on it, and it will bring up Zamo binding failure window. And here it's like a normal panel, so you can change, you can filter, you can search. Let me see color. Do I have anything related? Oh yeah, I have some binding failures related to color specifically. A useful feature that I personally very like is combine duplicates. So right now I have like lots of them, but I want to know, I don't want to look at every single of them if some are duplicated. So here I can see only unique failures and the number of how many times I got that
Hmm.
failure. If I click and let me do a few more times. So I added three people, and now I have three duplicated failures. So by combining duplicate, you can see only unique failures. You can clear, you can rearrange, resize, and I think even reset columns feature is available here. So that is to help our developers when they're working with data binding. I find it
Yeah.
extremely useful as well.
Very nice. Very nice.
All right, so going back to a new designer, that's what we talked about. Those
Hmm.
were all improvements in WPF, right? And we made some improvements in WinForms as well. And in WinForms, the main thing we were focusing on is enabling new designer for .NET Core and .NET 5. Because for WPF, we started a few years earlier prototyping the new isolated surface designer, and that's where we got the good head start. For WinForms, we started just with enabling it for .NET Core. It was a lot of effort to create a new architecture that would work outside of the main Visual Studio process, because Visual Studio is still .NET Framework, right? So we
Hmm.
now have two processes, .NET Core, .NET 5, and .NET Framework talking to each other. So that was our main focus, but also we were able to add new features in WinForms as well. And one of the biggest features that we are very proud of is called Task Dialog. You can see here animation. Now you can create very advanced message boxes and super customizable. These are just a few features that you can do, but you can put anything at any control in that message box.
It's a
And
placeholder. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And the reason why we feel so warm and fuzzy about this control is because it was completely done by our open source contributor, Konstantin Preiser. It was incredible amount of work, and we are super thankful for that. And Konstantin lives in Germany, so he was invited to our API reviews. We were talking to him a lot. We were giving him feedback. He was addressing our commands. It felt really like he's a part of our team, a true team
Nice.
member. And besides that, we received over 150 PRs from open source community, and we're extremely thankful for that. Like, big thank you, and please keep adding, keep working with us. We really appreciate it. You're really making the future of that platform with us. Few other updates that we did were updates to list view group, file dialog, track bar, etc. So we keep updating controls, trying to make them more modern, correspond to our users' feedback. And if you have any ideas of what you want to see in WinForms or WPF, please give us this feedback. The easiest way to do so in Visual Studio, let me bring up my Visual Studio back, there is a sign Send Feedback. So here you can report the problem or suggest a feature, and we go through every single item on that list. So if you want some new control or something doesn't work, please give us feedback. That's how we prioritize our work. That's how we know in which direction we should move further.
Yeah, it is the new reality. It's such a open and inviting ecosystem for all of us to work in.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sam, do you have any questions for me? Because I kept like showing you lots and lots of features.
Yeah, this is a lot, and this is great. So thank you to you and the team for doing what you do. Let's switch back to just you and me, and I want to ask you one last thing here. So going forward, I know like .NET Conf is coming up, and then big changes with .NET 5, and lots of fun things coming up. But what gets you excited? What do you see the future of WPF and WinForms going forward?
Oh, that's a great question. The thing that excites me the most is that they are available on .NET 5. They will be available on .NET 6 and so on. So we keep innovating in those platforms. And sometime, like some years ago, there were rumors that desktop was dead, like everything is web now, but that never gonna happen. We have WinForms and then WPF are the largest platforms in terms of user base. We have the most users in WinForms and then WPF. So,
and that is actually a similar story that we see. Like
right,
we make UI for everything, but like our WPF and WinForms and desktop base is huge. So this is absolutely the reality for developers running enterprise workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only reason why it might die if we stop innovating in those areas and we stop adding new things, we stop listening to our users and like serving their needs. And we absolutely don't want to do that. That's why every time I engage my audience to please reach out to me, I provide my Twitter handle. You can DM me or post publicly. Yes, it's right under my name, under me. So please let me know what you want. We do numerous user interviews where we got developers on call and ask them questions, listen to their feedback, look at their struggles, hear what they want to see in future. That is how we're moving forward with your feedback in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And we are so thankful, Olia, to you and the entire engineering organization for giving us the controls, bringing modern .NET desktop development on the latest and greatest platform and tooling. So keep innovating, keep doing what you're doing. And we appreciate you.
Here, one thing that I wanted to say, we keep talking about .NET 5, but I hear a lot that, okay, I have my WinForms, a WPF application that is targeting some version of .NET framework. What does it mean for me? Do I keep staying there, or do I abandon it and rewrite everything from scratch to be on .NET 5? And of course, you don't need to rewrite everything because we enabled a path how you can migrate from .NET Framework or .NET Core to .NET 5. And from .NET Core, migration is extremely easy. Now let me open a new, I'll close the solutions. And
do you want me to bring up your desktop?
Yeah, if you could bring up my desktop.
Okay, there we go.
Great. So I will create a new project. I'll go. This project right now is targeting .NET Core. The way I can see that, I can go to project file, and here you'll see target framework .NET Core app 3.1. So if you have application that is targeting .NET Core, moving to .NET 5 is extremely easy. You go right click on the project properties, and here target framework, you just choose .NET 5. Bam, you migrate it. Most likely you won't have any changes. Your application will just run on .NET 5. And the thing, we will fix it very soon, but right now Target framework says .NET 5.0, but if you're running WPF on WinForms application, it should be -Windows.
Yeah.
So another thing that should be fixed very soon. And right now, my app is targeting .NET 5, and it just works. If you have .NET, here it is, or world application. If your application is targeting .NET framework, then we have a tool for how you can migrate to .NET Core. And the tool is called Try Convert, and it's available on following link, but you can also install it. Just type in .NET Core install -g try convert in your preferred CLI. And to run the tool, we type try convert -p and then pass to your project file. That tool would not work 100% of cases because there's so many different ways of how your application can have different dependencies, structure, the project file, but we try to automate as much as we could. We heard your feedback loud and clear that you don't want to do it by hand, just try to do everything that you can, and wherever you cannot port it automatically, then people will have to do some refactoring by hand. But in most cases, hopefully this tool will work, and it will do two things. First, it will transform your project file from the old, it's a very clunky huge XML file, to the new SDK style project
SDK
file.
style projects. Yep.
I just showed, and in this hello world, it's just a few lines, right? Instead of few pages was the old project file. And the second thing, it will set the target framework to the new .NET 5. So that's 14. And few things that will not be supported in .NET 5, and we talked about it a lot, but I just wanted to bring it up again. Web forms, WCF server, and Windows workflow will remain on .NET framework only. And we're not going to port them, but their recommendation of new technologies that you can use instead, and you will gain so many new features and benefits if you will switch to the new technologies. And those are Blazor for web forms, gRPC for WCF server, and there is an open source for workflow project. This is Notepad for workflow on core.
Yeah. No, yeah, these are all great. And folks, hang in there. The try convert tool, like you said, like it says try convert in the name itself. So it's not going to do everything, but we actually use that tool. So hang in there. I'm going to show you a demo where we actually can wrap it up into a nice GUI, especially if you're using Telerik bits. We can switch over the binaries and make the migration a lot easier. So
yeah, that's perfect. I just wanted to see that. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. All right, well, Olia, thank you again so much. I know you're super busy, but thanks for taking the time to come and hop on and show us all the new greatest and coolest things that you and your team are doing. This is great.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My pleasure. And keep sending your questions and feedback. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sam.
And we appreciate you, Olia. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so let's talk about Telerik UI. And I want to show you some things that we have done, especially in terms of what Oli was talking about and where we can enable things going forward, but at the same time keeping the past happy. So WinForms and WPF, as you heard Olia say, it's a very, very mature platforms that you're coming into. Don't let anybody tell you that these are Battleship Gray and old legacy apps. This is what's running our business. And you are coming into a rich modern ecosystem that's cross-platform now. You have .NET Core running side by side. And if you are running on framework, you don't have to migrate unless you have a need for the APIs or unless you have a need for running .NET side by side. So take a look at some of those migration paths as well, and I'll show you. So we got two things that are heavy hitters for us that like thousands of developers use every day: UI for WPF and Telerik UI for WinForms. You all know this and love this, so thank you. If you're new to the family, welcome on board, and hopefully you can see what we can enable. Both of those things actually run on .NET Framework, and they also run on .NET Core 3.1, which is the LTS long-term support version, and also on .NET 5, which is yet to come out, but we have the RC bits, and we are partners. So RC1 and even RC2, we can make things light up, and I'll show you how to do that. So again, like I'm saying, it's future-proof. You can stay on Framework if you wanted to, but you can absolutely run on the latest and greatest. We actually distribute different binaries, so we can swap them out, and we can help you out a little bit with the migration as well. It's a simple VS extension that I can show you. WinForms, right? And I saw a lot of comments. The designer on WinForms has taken a long time, and it's an engineering challenge, because like you have to keep in mind, like Visual Studio on Windows is a .NET Framework application, and now you're trying to swap in parts of this to drive .NET Core projects. So it's a challenge, and we have been working nonstop with Microsoft on this. So all of your Telerik UI WinForms controls, they all show up on your little toolbox, so you can do drag and drop. So the designer is a big part of WinForms, as you all know. So we're glad to have that back. Now, a lot of folks were asking about UWP and the WinUI story. So you have heard about UWP, that it enables across all of the Windows devices. And then you have WinUI, and the question I saw a lot of folks ask is UWP dead? And the answer is no. But what they're trying to do is separate the UI stack so they can do more of the end-to-end UI play. It sits on top of, like WinUI 3 is going to sit on top of Win32 and UWP. So that's the foundation. That's not, you can't take it away. But what we can do is separate that out. So when WinUI 3, I don't know exact date, sometime early next year, when it is fully baked and ready for production, you will have a UI stack that is independent of Windows, but it is only for Windows. I mean, there are no plans right now to go cross-platform to like other platforms, yeah, I mean, both of them are here to stay. So pick your thing, and if you are doing UWP applications, I mean, this is actually free and open source for you. We have Telerik UI for UWP suite, has about 24, 25 different controls, very rich controls that I can show you real quick. And that's for all of your UWP applications. And then WinUI, this is, again, like I said, it's still experimental. It's in preview, but we have been working with Microsoft, and we have experimental Telerik UI for WinUI suite, which brings in the things that you expect from us. So first things, like we do stand on top of WinUI, so we get all of the benefits of a modern UI stack, fluent design, all of the APIs. Right now, WinUI 3 from Microsoft is UWP only. It runs only on UWP. Eventually, you will have Win32 support, and that's when you will see our controls light up there as well. So we started with the grid, but now we have all the charts and graphs and the bullet graphs and the different types of gauges, all that you can expect. This is entirely free for you to try out, so please give us feedback on how that's going. And I would like to show you. Now, before I switch to my demos, just a couple of quick notes. If you're building any type of client application, you know this, you can't be in the dark as to what's happening in your network stack. So many of you already use Fiddler, but you may not have seen what's happening of late. We have, I mean, the Fiddler Classic for Windows is still there, but we now have Fiddler everywhere, which is beautiful, and it's created from scratch, runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So it's a proxy that lets you record HTTPS traffic, inspect HTTPS traffic, and play it back for you. So don't be in doubt as to what's going on in your network. One more mention, JustMock. This is a beautiful solution that we have for all of your unit testing needs, because you have to unit test when you are shipping products. That's how you have confidence. So this is your mocking framework, so you can have your unit tests pass without actually having dependencies. So take a look at that. We actually wrote a beautiful ebook on unit testing. So give that a read. It's right on the homepage itself. And even that has support for .NET 5. So what I'm trying to say is, like, we are here and we are invested in your success. The docs kind of help you out. The tools are there, demos let you play around with it. I'll show you some of that. And if you want us to do things, we are always listening to you for roadmaps. So give us feedback at telerik.com. So let's jump over. I have 10 minutes and a lot to show, but that's good. All right, so let's look at some stuff here. So first thing is, if I go to telerik.com, right, and if I click on desktop components, you see all of these 4 things that I talked about: WinForms, WPF, WinUI, and UWP. Let's talk about WinForms and WPF first. So if I go ahead and install them, let me switch over to my Windows machine here. You will see that in the installation itself, so it goes into program files. This is a new machine for me, so it doesn't have a whole lot of things here, but you can see WPF, the latest bits. if I look into the binaries, like this right here is where you're seeing that this is for .NET Framework 4, this is for 4.5 or 4.7 or 4.8. This is .NET Core 3.1, and this is for .NET Core 5 or .NET 5, right? So we separate out the binaries very clearly so you know exactly what you're using and why. So let me show you a couple of quick things which you have seen likely, but you don't have to take my word. All of these things, the sample apps for WPF, WinForms, UWP, they're all in the store. So you don't need to install anything, just get it from the store and you can see. And we also give you the source code for that. So fully baked in, rich controls, notifications, you name it. Some of the recent things we did was like a slider control, which actually has multiple thumbs, which I really like. Like if you are choosing like flight tickets and you want it to be a certain range, this is very nice to have. Charts and graphs, you know, this is what we do. So all of this is there for you. You can switch around the themes. It comes with a big theme library, and I'll actually show you what we did with themes to kind of migrate that. You know, grids and charts, like if I go into explore all the controls, these are all the editors that you have, the data viz, the layout, the navigation, it's all there for you to use and bring into your WPF applications for a rich look and feel. Same story with WinForms here. And again, these are just the store apps that I'm showing you. And these have the latest bits, but again, task dialogues, barcodes, spreadsheets, like our document processing libraries are really fabulous when it comes to showing you those like Office documents that you can embed in your WinForms or your WPF applications and be able to work with them easily. And you get docking, you get schedulers, you get calendars, all of that is right there for you. I'm going to maybe minimize this a little bit so you can see there's a spreadsheet document right in there. There are list views, there are different types of maps and graphs you can do. So all of that is there for you to use in WinForms. And let me show you UWP. Again, this is not going away anywhere. All of this is open source, so you can play around with this. You get to see some of the charts and graphs we make. This is what we do. A couple of controls really stand out. Like there's a hex view, which I really like. It kind of flips and shows you the details when they flip. And yeah, all of that is there for you to use, and it's all open source. So let me show you just a couple of quick things here. I'm going to pull up my Visual Studio. And I also got questions between Visual Studio 2019 and Preview. There are some differences. There are some things that only run on 2019 Preview, but most of it will be brought over when we have .NET 5 and the next iteration of the Preview getting baked into the regular Visual Studio. So this is a quick sample app, and I can run this really quick. And let me show you. So this is WinUI, okay? This is experimental from Microsoft, but again, we are ahead of the curve. Like we started with the grid, and this is the grid that you expect from us. If I pull up one of them, you can see like the sorting, filtering, everything works. And then we have charts and graphs, which is exactly what you expect out of charts and graphs, different types of charts. And let me show you like the polar series, which I really like. So these are the really things you can enable with your data on that, and some smart UI. We have gauges, linear gauges and radial gauges. So all of this works. Again, this is experimental, but this is running on VS 2019. You may need to get the preview bits, but it's all there. So let me do one quick thing here. So I can close this and I can create a new project here. Now, if I already have the Telerik bits, these things light up for me. I can go Telerik WPF application. This is running on framework, not on .NET Core. So if I hit next and yeah, let's just call it a Telerik WPF app, and this is running on 4.7.2. That's fine. I'm going to hit create, and you see a wizard, like a couple of those templates show up right away. Let's do Outlook inspired app, and we'll let it finish. And I want to show you something really quick once it does. So assume that you have a big .NET framework application that's running on WPF. How would you kind of migrate that? Okay, so again, nobody's going to promise you a silver bullet that does everything under the sun, but there is a little bit of help that at least you can get started with your migrations a little easier. And particularly in this case where we are spinning up a project, and if you look at all the references here, these are all .NET Framework references, right? All of our UI is .NET Framework. And if I quickly run this, you will see it's a fully Outlook inspired application. And this is all WPF. You can do this all within your WPF applications with the templates and themes that you got. We'll give it a second to come up. I'm really running short of time here. So hopefully folks can stay with me for another 10 to 15 minutes so I can show you some of these things. So you see the app, this is the app, and everything looks like Outlook, but it's WPF, right? So what I can do here is I can go into my extensions and I can go to Telerik and UI for WPF, and I can do a .NET Core project converter. And you can do this for WinForms as well. So this one's saying, here's what we'll do. We'll not change any code, but we will use the portability analyzer to tell you the APIs that you may need to fix up, and then I go next. That is the project I want, right, to the WPF app, and I hit next. And it's going to do a bunch of things. It's using the try convert, but this is all visual and there for you to use. You may want to create a backup, but we're going to live on the edge and just go finish. So it just swaps out the things on this project itself. And it's still working. But essentially what it's going to do is convert the project into an SDK style project, and it's going to swap out the Telerik binaries that were .NET Framework based. Now they are suddenly .NET Core based, and the same migration works even more easier when you go from .NET Core 3.0 to .NET 5, right? So it's working, and I think it's done actually. No, it's still a little working, but you get the idea. So the references get cleaned up. The SDK style project is what you get. And this works. So while this is going, I'm going to bring up 2019 preview here to show you an app that we have actually migrated. This is a full-featured app, but what I showed you were super simple. This is a full-featured app. This is actually what we call the color theme generator. You get the source code for this as well. So this was a .NET Framework app, but we have brought it over into .NET 5, runs on .NET 5 here in my debug targets. You can see debug 50. The only thing that's different here is runs as .NET 5 and then dash Windows, right? So this is fully migrated using the same tools. And if I run this now, you can see the colored theme generator comes up. I'll give it one more second. So this is an example of a full-featured framework application brought over. And this lets you customize all of our themes and templates. You get to choose your own colors. And you see the difference, like when I switch to something like material, like everything changes, right? So that's the benefit you get by having a theme that you get to customize so easily. And it's taking a while, but there you go, right? So yeah, that's it. That's the migration. Let me see if I can answer a few more questions. And oh, this thing finally finished. So you can see like it's now running on .NET Core, which we can see if I go on properties. Oh, it's still actually doing it, so it's not done yet. So we won't wait for that anymore, but I mean, the tool is there for you to see how easily you can make that work. Okay, I would have loved to show you a Xamarin Forms application actually running on WPF, because that's one way you can share code, but I think I'm going to run really short on time. So what I'm trying to say is all of this is out there for you to use to migrate. We are trying to give you some help. And a lot of things are changing, and they're changing for the better. It doesn't need to be overwhelming. You can take your time. If you don't want to migrate, that's totally fine. But be it on framework or be it on .NET Core, you should have tooling that kind of helps you out from us, sharp UI controls that you expect from us. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I do apologize. I don't have time for all the other demos that I could show you, like Xamarin Forms, working on WPF, more of the migrations. But let's stop here, because I know a lot of you had some excellent questions. So again, one more time, my apologies for the little bit of the fuzziness in during Olia's section, but we'll give you a high quality video so you can get to it. Michael Paul is asking, not enough info to decide today. Yes, that's totally fair. If you want to take your time and decide, especially after .NET 5 comes along, as to what you want, then absolutely you can do so. Let's see. Oh, there's a lot of questions. So we have your email, so we should be able to get back. But if you want to hang out with me 5 minutes, and I can absolutely run through some of these questions with you. So let me start from the beginning here. So Jeremy Biantilla was asking, with .NET 5 using an MVVM architecture, are you able to share your view models across? Yes. Yes and no. So the question is, can you share code between WPF, Xamarin, Blazor, and Wasm? So the answer is yes, because if you make your models and the view models in particular just .NET standard libraries, then there's nothing stopping you. I mean, that's just .NET standard on the cover, so you can share code, but then the UI stack is different for everyone, right? Don't forget Win32. Yes, Graham, we have not. How does WinUI relate to UWP? And I think we saw a lot of questions about that. Nothing is dying. WinUI is the end-to-end UI stack, so it doesn't do all of the things under the covers. So that's where WinUI kind of sits on top of UWP to get access to the Windows-specific things that you might need. So yeah, nothing is going away. Is there a chance to in Telerik UI? Yeah, we keep on running different promotions, so reach out to us as to what you're doing if you're an indie developer or if you have a small team, where we are always happy to help and try to hook you up with some licenses that might help you. Victor was asking, when I use Telerik Blazor from Chrome, it lets me pin to the desktop. Okay, yes, that's a great point. So Victor, essentially what's being asked is, can you make desktop applications with web technologies? The answer is yes, but it comes at a small bit of a price. So if it's a PWA, then yes, what you're saying, you can pin it and you can have a little bit of service workers running in the background. You can have notifications, but it's a shell. And then you can also consider doing what like Steve Sanderson was doing with Blazor. It is Blazor running on desktop, not through Electron, because Electron is kind of heavy-handed. We don't need Node.js when we're running Blazor. So there is a lightweight version, I think it's called Web View, which essentially is the web canvas, and then it's wrapped up into a desktop shell. So yes, that's another great cross-platform story. But again, it's not like it's not .NET and WPF that you're doing. That's web technologies. All right. What Keith was asking, as a large global ISV, what Telerik plans to do with WinUI, Win32, and Uno platform? Okay, so we are already invested in WinUI. As you can see, it's probably months out before it's production ready, but we already have WinUI, Telerik UI for WinUI. Use it, give us feedback. Win32, whenever that is available, we will support that too. And Uno platform, give us feedback. I mean, honestly, we would like to see more interest from developers, and we are happy to support you if that's what you want. WinForms Designer was a big deal. Yes, Theo Jacobs, it was a big deal, and now it's available. What is the difference? Oh, this was a great question. I wanted to answer this from Jim Morse. What's the difference between .NET Core and WinUI? So .NET Core is cross-platform, and that's great, but you have to realize there is no cross-platform desktop story per se, because it's difficult, right? So if you have to like target Mac OS, the only way to go to it is like using Xamarin Forms, right? So .NET Core is cross-platform, but it's for all the web stuff, right? So WinUI is Windows only, but it lets you target like every Windows device. So this is not an easy thing to do, to have a cross-platform desktop story using WPF or WinForms. Maybe we'll have something in the future, but that's where the difference is. .NET Core is cross-platform, it's lean and modular. So the .NET runtime is cross-platform, but the desktop, the UI part is not. So you do need WinUI to serve up all of your Windows counterparts. Okay, I don't know how long I can keep you all. A lot of folks were asking if this is going to be recorded. Yes, absolutely, and we'll make sure to swap out the high-res video for audio section. Let's see. Maybe I'll do like 2 more questions. Okay, Steve was asking, in Xamarin Forms, we can now define our UI structure with C# instead of Xaml. Is this coming to WinUI? That's a great question, especially if you look at .NET MAUI or whatever we end up calling it in future. There is an option right now in Xamarin Forms to define your entire visual tree in C#. And I want to say like WPF lets you do some of it, but it's nowhere as polished as what Xamarin Forms is. And the benefit is like all of the Zamo tooling folks at Visual Studio and at Microsoft, like they're working on this together. So I would expect that WPF will also get something similar. And then WinForms, I mean, the designer folks are really fond of it. So it's glad to see that come in. These features, Robert was asking if these features are available in WinForms. Most of it is like whatever I showed you for WPF, like we try to shoot for parity. Like most of those controls are also there for WinForms. It's a matter of which platform you're building for. But I mean, it's not one-on-one. I mean, there are some differences because like WPF gives us maybe a richer canvas to do some UI. So there's a little bit of a difference. bonus for property grid camel casing. Yeah, Olia showed off some really cool things, and I think like you should take a look at what the Xaml tuning looks like on WPF today, because they are sharing the love with Winforms and trying to bring as much of it as possible. Oh boy, there's a lot of questions. I'm not going to be able to get to all of this, but we will absolutely get back and reach out to me. Let me bring this up here. So that's my social handle, by the way. So please ask away questions on Twitter, and you can also ping Telerik. That's where all of our engineering teams and our PMs are. We are always listening to you. So yeah, I won't have time to go through all of it, but we do have your email, so we can get back to you. But if you want a quicker answer and a breadcrumb trail that you can leave, so please do so on Twitter. So yeah, I've already kept you for 10 minutes longer than what we were scheduled to. So I appreciate all of you and your time. I come from a heavy desktop background, and I hope that just like me, you are also excited. You see that this is a renewed time of energy, because you can now run desktop not only on full .NET framework, but you get the latest and greatest with .NET Core 3 and the tooling, and also with .NET 5. So desktop apps are very, very welcome, and you are able to run all of your enterprise workflows just the way you've been doing it, just on the latest .NET with all the best of tooling. And Microsoft gives you a lot out of the box, and we are here to augment your experience with UI frameworks that makes you more productive. So I am going to stop here. I know I kept you a little longer, but thank you one more time, and we shall get back to you on some of the questions, and we appreciate all of you. Okay. Thank you.